Hi everyone, and welcome to the first ever CAC Men's Lacrosse Preseason Webcast. I'm Assistant Commissioner Tim Maurer. Thanks for joining us. This webcast will feature each of the 9 conference coaches discussing their outlook for the upcoming year, followed by the release of the preseason poll. 2 new members enter the conference fray in 2014, with Christopher Newport and Southern Virginia transitioning into the CAC. Now, let's take a look at each team entering the 2014 campaign.
Our goals and expectations for this year are we want to compete in every game. We want to go out and we want to play hard in every game and see what we can do in the new conference. Our biggest key loss from last year will be our goalie, Andy McGregor. He was a 4-year starter for us and just did phenomenal things last year for us. A big part of the reason that we made it to the NCAAs, and he'll be hard to replace. And he's the biggest piece we lose. Key returners on attack are Aaron Chauncey and John Thompson. They both return for us, which is going to help us a lot. At the midfield, we have Adam Abate, Parker Thompson, Joey Rolando, Devin Bushweller, and Greg Lyman coming back. Those guys are pretty much our first 2 midfields from last year, and they'll be all coming back. Then on defense, we have Teddy Pikowski as our long stick midi, and we have Mike Mabry and Brendan Dwyer on defense, and then we got Mark Hargrove coming back for his senior season as a goalie. The biggest place where the newcomers are going to have a influence on us is going to be in the goal. We brought in Matt Hayden from Madison High School in Northern Virginia, who went to the Virginia State Championship game last year. And then we also bring in Nick Wright, who is from Maryland. And between those 2 and Mark Hargrove, they're competing hard to see who our starting goalie is going to be. We love being in a conference. Being an independent was challenging, to say. I think the biggest thing is going to be the continuity of our schedule. We will have games on Wednesdays and Saturdays. And that's going to help a lot from last year and the previous year. We had games on a Tuesday, a Thursday, and a Sunday. We might play 3 games in a week with a lot of travel, and that's going to really help a lot. We kept a lot of our ODAC schedule in place. We play a lot of those guys, which I think prepares us for our CAC games, and we're excited to go compete with the CAC guys. You got Salisbury, you got St. Mary's, you got York, you got Mary Washington, you got Frostburg, Marymount, and Southern Virginia, and Wesley. It's going to be fun and entertaining for the kids to go out there and play those guys. We started a little bit later this year, and we were able to get some good days out there. We've only missed 1 day because of snow. The grounds guys get the field plowed for us, which really helps a lot. And makes our life a lot easier. But we've been going at it 6 days a week, and we got our first game coming up against Washington and Lee here in about 14, 15 days, and we're just getting ready to do that, and hopefully we won't have any more snow to take away our practice days. It's one thing we talked a good bit about, particularly in the fall. We talked to the kids about it, what that excitement was like. We let the kids that went with us, they came back and they talked about it, and to the new kids. That was a huge thing for us. It kind of validated the changes that we made in the program, where we went from somewhat focusing more on the positive aspects of practice, of getting better every day, and we think that is what took us to the NCAAs last year. We've got Zach Thomas, who came to us from Roanoke, 2-time All-American at Roanoke, Player of the Year, Athlete of the Year at Roanoke his senior year. He's been the Roanoke offensive coordinator for the last 3 years, and he's with us now, which allows us to move Mikey back to defense, which is what he's more familiar with. Zach is going to run our offense, And then we also have Andy McGregor, who is our goalie coach, which is also making a huge difference with our goalies. We're able to give them good, solid coaching from someone who's played the position, and we think those guys are really our biggest key returners.
Our goals and expectations for this season are just to make sure that we keep getting better. You know, even though we think that not a whole lot of schools out there look at us and say, oh, you know, this is just the start of their fourth season, like maybe they did in our first or second year. You know, we are aware of that, and you know, with having a pretty good first year and then having a pretty down second year, you know, we were really happy with the turnaround that we had in our third season, and you know, that was a big change from one year to the next. So going into our fourth year after our third year, we just want to make sure that we keep pointed in the right direction. We think we kind of righted the ship last year, and you know, recruiting's going well. We're bringing in good guys and returning guys at key positions. So our goal this year is to improve our record a little bit. You know, I know that our guys, you know, they definitely got a taste of the postseason conference with us hosting a game, and then you know, turned right around and lost a game that we got to host in the conference. So we were pleased with some of the experience we got from being able to compete in the ECAC tournament, and you know, have the experience of being in a game where, you know, if it's over, it's over, but if you win, you get to play another game. And I think that maybe a lot of guys learned that, you know, going into the ECAC after losing a game in the first round of the conference tournament. With us having been a young program, you know, we graduated 3 guys 2 years ago and 3 guys last year. So we've lost 6 guys since our program started. So you know, next year is going to be a new thing for us, where we have to deal with losing 17 guys. You know, those 17 guys that are seniors from our first group. The one guy last year that really impacted us a lot, that we're going to miss the most, is definitely Jeff Nagel. You know, we started the season last year kind of playing 4 guys at close defense, and as the season went on, Jeff played better and better, and he kind of cemented himself in that group of 3 starters at defense. So we're definitely going to miss Jeff a lot. Again, we return everybody but one guy that started for us last year. You know, Spencer Love and Ryan Serio were hurt in the fall, but those guys are healthy now and going in the spring, you know, with Devin Colgrove. So we return, you know, our entire starting attack that were our top 3 leading scorers last year. You know, Nick Staley was our 4th attackman last year, that I think was our 5th leading scorer. So we returned, you know, 4 of our top 5 scorers at attack, and you know, Michael Kibler's pressing for some time at attack too. So we think we have 5. You know, Ricky Kneebone is a guy that's contributed a lot for us down there. So I think we have 5-6 attackmen that can all play the position really well. So we're very deep at attack. You know, in the midfield, again, we've got a bunch of seniors that have played for us since they were freshmen, and you know, Phil Hess and Devin Staley and Andy Lumen and Zach Douglas, and then we've got a bunch of juniors that have played a lot too. Gray Bourne and you know, Chris Rios has been our leading scoring midfielder since he's been on our team, and Spencer Barnett has played a lot too. So I mean, I think that's, you know, 7, and Craig Kirby is another junior, so that's, you know, 8, 9 guys there that have all played a lot. So we're really deep in the midfield, you know, and defensively, even though we do lose Jeff Nagel, you know, we return 2 second-team all-conference guys at defense, and Zach Burkhart and Paul Newman. So, and then we think, you know, we got a couple guys that are gonna, you know, Kevin Kinney's played a lot of minutes for us in his first 3 years and started a handful of games too. And Andrew Richardson's really come along. You know, he was a guy that was kind of behind some guys, but in his junior year, he's ready to fill in. So we think that really we've got a lot of guys that are, you know, even though they're juniors, they're kind of veterans for us because they played a lot. And you know, a lot of these seniors, they've been a part of this thing since we got it off the ground, and it means a lot to them, and they really want to have a great senior year. The newcomers coming onto the team, they've got their work cut out for them to play, just because we have so many guys that have played for, you know, 2 and 3 years that are returning to the starting lineup. You know, we do have a transfer from Ohio Wesleyan who had a great freshman year for Ohio Wesleyan last year, who you know, transferred into school. He joined us this spring, Tate Rowland. You know, we're kind of getting him caught up with everything that we're doing because he wasn't here in the fall, and we're looking forward to seeing what Tate can do. John Gamber is another freshman who we think a lot of. He was hurt most of the fall, so we're trying to keep him healthy and see if he can help us out this spring. I think Kyle Horak from Northern High School is probably the freshman midfielder that had the best fall for us. And then we have a long stick midi, Christopher Santina, who really played well in the fall, but again, you know, we returned 3 senior long stick middies that were our top 3 guys last year. So even though we like the way he's playing a lot, it's hard to play 4 long stick middies, so he's going to have to beat out one of those guys that's been playing a lot for us. Our schedule out of the conference, I mentioned earlier that we've made our schedule a little bit tougher. We've picked up a couple Centennial Conference teams, and the Centennial from top to bottom is a great conference. So we picked up McDaniel, who didn't have a great record last year, but I think if you look at their record, they were playing a lot of really good teams and playing a lot of those teams really tough. So we think a lot of McDaniel. And then Washington College we picked up. They made the NCAA tournament last year. I think they're 9 or 10 preseason this year. So as we become better as a program, we want to make sure that we're playing better teams and trying to put ourselves into a conversation where a lot of in Division III lacrosse, a lot of the good teams just kind of play the good teams, and it's tough to get good teams on your schedule. But we want to get to the point where teams look forward to playing us because they think we're a good, challenging opponent. So I think with those 2 teams, we got an opportunity to play those teams really tough and kind of prove that we're getting better and better. And then obviously in conference in the CAC, I think our conference is one of the more underrated conferences in Division III lacrosse. I think for years people have looked at the CAC and just said, well, Salisbury's in the CAC, and then they don't think much further than that. But last year we had 2 teams make the NCAA tournament because St. Mary's won the conference, and York and Mary Washington both spent some time in the top 20 last year, and we hope that we're playing ourselves into being in the conversation with those teams. And Christopher Newport's coming in. They made the NCAA tournament as an at-large team last year, and from top to bottom, there's not a game that you can take lightly.
Our goals and expectations are primarily to attain a national tournament ranking, a national tournament bid, and a final top 20 ranking, which we achieved mid-season last year, but couldn't hold it down the stretch. And so to follow up and attain that and get that national tournament bid, I think we just have to demonstrate that we're capable of coming up with big plays and big games and not letting the big game atmosphere get to our heads. It's going to be tough to replace Sean Dacey and Paul Tunick, both graduated midfielders who are capable of having big games, putting up 5 or 6 points a game, which they did a couple times in turn last year. We have to find some guys who can mimic that. Well, it's a long list. We at attack we have Billy Kelly, Luke Dick, John Bollinger. All guys with 40 points or more last year. Of course, Luke Dick was first team all conference, and all of them are quick. All of them get the ball out of their stick real quickly. They're capable of putting some points up. And I think also we have some strength at midfield in Joey Marson, who's a very good two-way midfielder. Johnny Esposito, who's a strong face-off guy, and a very good defensive midfielder, who may be playing some more offense this year. In the defense, we have a lot of experience returning with senior defenders Charlie Webb and Forrest Fisher, juniors Travis P., John Mulcahy, and all those guys are capable of playing long stick midi too. So we have some real strengths at every position. In the goal, we have Zach Del Grosso, who played and started most of our games last year, had some big games, especially early in the season last year. So we have a lot of good returners coming back. The new guys, in general, I say, are a year or two away from being key players, but we do have at midfield Mike Marson, who's really looked good in the winter preseason here, and as far as other newcomers at defense, they're primarily at defense with Jeff Quick and Tyler Houston, who are transfers, big, strong, athletic guys. And then a couple of freshmen who play LSM, Sean Prinn and Will Gatens, who are very quick, have very good stick work, and are capable of matching up against some good quick midfielders. We have a really strong, I think, and underrated conference. Last year, if you count the teams that are in our conference this year, the new teams in our conference, we have 5 teams in our conference this year who were either ranked in the top 20 last year at some point or made the national tournament. And so you have, of course, I think the top three this year and the ones to beat are going to be Salisbury, St. Mary's, who won the conference last year, and York. And then you have Frostburg and CNU, who had good years last year. Outside the conference, I think our toughest competition are going to be from traditional conference powerhouses like the Centennial and ODAC. So we'll have Hampton-Sydney and Washington and Lee from the ODAC, McDaniel from the Centennial, and there's some other good ones on there too, but those are the ones that stick out. I think a real subtle, maybe again underrated key to our success is going to be the ability of some guys who were role players last year to step up and be go-to guys. Guys like Chip Hittard, Jared Krikorian, Greg Smith, Griffin Burke, who came in and gave us some great offense and stretches last year. So those guys are going to need to step up to another level this year if we're going to take the pressure off the attack and ultimately take the pressure off the defense to win the close games. And I think one other thing that maybe isn't out there for everyone to see is just that we're very athletic and very deep at every position. We just have to develop some offensive playmakers. But other than that, I really like our athleticism and our depth. And if the guys keep working hard, I think we could have a good run.
Our goals and expectations are to make the CAC playoffs, but not only to make it, but to advance. We have a secondary motivation this year, joining the ECACs. I think that's a great opportunity to win that conference. Our goal has always been to win a CAC title. I think we're fortunate this year that we have another opportunity as well to make the ECAC tournament and to hopefully win the ECAC championship as well. Our key losses last year, we only had 2 seniors. We graduated 2 guys, Jack Burke and George Pugh. George Pugh was a transfer from Northern Virginia Community College, an attackman for us. 2-year starter, definitely a top 5 guy the minute he got here. Great player, great guy. Definitely, some shoes to fill there. Lefty player, which is always good to have at attack. And then Jack Burke was definitely got some big shoes to fill. He was a captain for us last year, a 2-year starter, 3-year player for us. He definitely was a big factor as far as point total wise. His production was definitely higher than George's, but great leader. He definitely was getting the guys going, riling up. So we don't have to replace that many, which we're fortunate with, I guess it means we're playing a lot of young guys. Our key returners this year, starting with attack, is Connor Kellogg, leading goal scorer last 2 seasons. He leads that unit. He's definitely the captain, 2-time captain for us, returning. He's the best player that we have at that position. Real crafty guy, not the biggest guy, but super fast and definitely big producer. At midfield, we have Garrett Nealand, who's a transfer also from Northern Virginia Community College, local guy from Lee High School. He was a second-line midfielder for us last season. He's a first-line midfielder for us now. He was voted captain, which I think says a lot for a guy who transferred in. Nico Burns, another guy at midfield for us. He's been a starter since the minute he showed up here. First-line midfielder. He is a 19 goals last year and 4 assists, so a 20-plus point guy. At the defensive side, we have a lot of guys. That's probably the majority of our team are all juniors. Good core group of guys that are returning back from there. In Tyler Da Silva at D-Midi, Austin Miller at close defense, Max Rouse at close defense, Garrett Satterwhite, and Jacob Holman are returning for us, all at close defense. So we've got a good core group of guys there. And anchoring that unit is our last year starter in the cage, Derek DiGiovanni, who for most of the season led the CAC in saves. And he's also returning captain for us, was a captain as a junior. Pretty excited about him. He's certainly projected to be the starter now going into the season. We have a transfer in from Shenandoah, Matt Justice. He was the guy we recruited out of DeMatha, out of high school, decided to go to Shenandoah, ended up thinking that Marymount was a better opportunity for him, so he's transferred in, and he was started for us in both fall games, come right in, ready to play. He was an anchor for his team at Shenandoah, the leading scorer on the team there last season as a freshman, so we're pretty excited about what he's going to bring to the table. We got a good crop of freshmen. We brought in 11 guys. Feel pretty solid about this group. Jeremy Larkin is an All-American out of Central PA, who we feel is a great addition to the program. Sean Haviland out of St. Mary's of Annapolis, great high school, great program, MIA player, big tall guy, very athletic. Kyle Granville out of Northern High School, another really solid program out of the state of Maryland. Nick Coleman at midfield, we feel is going to be a big guy for us. Possible second line guy, midfielder out of Central PA. And then we have two additions at attack who we're really excited about in Kellen McCarthy and Chad Neergarth. They both went to Woodgrove. Chad graduated and went to Bridgeton Academy for a finishing year and had a great year there. And they play a top schedule every season, which includes schools like the Hill Academy. And then Kellen was a senior last year for Woodgrove and was a big leader, captain for them, who helped take that team to the state tournament. So pretty excited about both of those guys. My thoughts on the schedule is that it's always a tough schedule. There's no doubt about it. We don't have to go far to play some of the best teams in the country. Last year, at one point in the season, we had 4 teams ranked in the top 20. So, and it's only getting better every year with the addition of Christopher Newport. The competition's there. It's very exciting to be a part of. We have some big games. I think that we were afforded some really solid home games this year, big Saturday games. Certainly ones that you circle on the schedule right away. Getting York at home, getting Christopher Newport at home, and of course the last game of the year, playing Mary Wash at home is always a big game for us. Out of conference, always start off the same way. Get a big rivalry with Catholic, a former CAC opponent, but there's always that kind of that rivalry, crosstown rivalry with them, and it's great to have, great to see. We open up the season with them, and then we are. Other out-of-conference games, Messiah is returning for us. We went there last year, another good school, at a good conference. We also picked up playing Hood this year, another CAC opponent that dropped off when they changed conferences. And as well, we're playing Shenandoah, and I think our biggest key out-of-conference matchup is going to be against Kane University out of the Skyline Conference. We're playing them down in North Carolina for our spring break trip.
I think this year, as every year for us, the goal is to compete for the conference championship, and with that, hopefully make it to the NCAA tournament. Each year we have individual and team goals that we try to meet, but the schedule is set up for us that if we do well and we played our potential, I think that the first thing would be to make the conference tournament. Obviously, with only the top 6 teams going, that is of paramount importance to us. And then to do well in the conference and to hopefully win. And at that point, then go on to the NCAA tournament, which we were able to do last year. I think the key losses from last year, 4 seniors in particular really stand out, 1 at each position. Patrick Mull at attack really was our quarterback. He was a 4-year starter for us. Did a great job. Kind of might have taken away from some of his points actually by making sure everybody else was doing the right thing. That's going to be a tough spot to come back. We've got a few guys vying for the position. In the middle of the field, Albert Mitchell was one of the best face-off kids that we've had since I've been here. and he was just an extremely steady performer day in and day out. From a leadership standpoint, Justin Hardy just gave us a great backline stopper, not only a great positional defender, but really was the quarterback of the defense, similar to what Patrick did for the offense. And then another midfielder, Dalton Yan, who was kind of unheralded, but Dalton did a great job for us all year. Again, just a 4-year player, paid his dues and had a great senior year. So not that any one player can replace those guys, but certainly those are the 3 or the 4 key areas that we're looking to solidify this year. Key returners, I would say, fortunately, we've got a lot of depth, a lot of experience. So with losing those 4 guys that I spoke about, we're fortunate that we have a lot of guys back. Ben Love at attack and Connor Jordan both started throughout the year for us and really did a great job. Ben's a senior, Connor's only a sophomore this year. They had a really good chemistry together. We returned our entire first line, Gordy Long, Matt Tarrant, and Will Lurch. So I think after, and this will be actually the 3rd year that they've played together, so they've got a great synergy, working very, very well together, give us great experience. And then on the defensive side of things as well, David Mitchell-McShane, Phil Capello, and Grant Lowenfeld all did a really good job, all started at different times throughout the year, bring good experience, with David being a senior, Grant a junior, and Phil a sophomore. So they've all been in the battles and really tested. So I think those guys really, again, give us a great group moving forward. Pretty excited about the freshman class this year. Again, it's very, very deep. A couple guys that have stood out for us would be Mike Friege, defender from Loyola. Mike's just a really strong, athletic kid who's done very well so far throughout the fall and the spring. Javier Flores from Concord Carlisle up in Massachusetts. Again, very similar to Mike, very, very athletic defender that we think will do a great job. One of our midfielders that we like so far, Luke Eshelman from Broadneck High School. Luke is just a big, strong, athletic kid that we feel will really translate well to the college game. And 2 attackmen so far that we like, Patrick Regan from North Carolina and Kevin O'Malley from Maryland. Both those guys will be looking to kind of step into Mull's role. Thought we had a demanding schedule last year, and we've probably increased our strength of schedule this year. Currently, we have 5 teams on the schedule that made the NCAA tournament. Denison is a traditional NCAA team that would give us 6 teams. They just by a fluke of their 1 loss and losing in their conference last year, they didn't make it. So we really feel we've got 6 NCAA teams on the tournament. We play currently 4 of the top 10 that were ranked in the preseason. So we think our out-of-conference schedule really helps prepare us for the conference, the rigors of the conference tournament. The conference had a great year last year with 4 teams being ranked at one point in time. In any power rating or the NCAA power rankings, the Capital comes in 3 or 4 out of all the conferences in the country. So we're really hoping that a very demanding out-of-conference schedule will help prepare us for the conference, which is extremely tough. York, Mary Wash, Salisbury, all very, very good teams who we need to play our best. And again, we're hoping that the out-of-conference games help prepare us for the run late in April.
Well, we got several goals for this year, but obviously our first goal is our objective is to get a little bit better every day. You know, we return a veteran defense and a veteran attack, but we need to improve as an offensive unit with the midfield. But our objective is, you know, we want to be playing on the last Sunday in May. I mean, that's no secret, you know, that we want to be in that mix at the end. And but we got a lot of things to do in the meantime. But obviously, we'd like to get the conference title back. You know, we had the regular season title last year, and we were upset in the championship game in the playoffs. But that, you know, that's our first major objective as far as a quantifiable thing, because that's the automatic ticket to the NCAA. I'd say our key loss probably from last year's squad, you know, it was definitely Eric Klug. You know, Klug had a great season, a breakout senior year. You know, was a force to be reckoned with in the midfield with great speed and an extremely hard shot. I think that, you know, that's probably the biggest loss that we've seen so far in our preseason. Our key guys coming back this year, you know, first of all, we got a great nucleus returning on defense. You know, he starts in the cage with an All-American, Alex Taylor, who's been a two-time All-American, and, you know, so anytime you start with an All-American in the cage, you're pretty excited. But, you know, we're expecting big things out of him. Return second-team All-American defenseman Josh Martin, you know, who's preseason first-teamer this year, who's just a lockdown kind of defender. You know, he's a guy that we're really counting on down low to anchor that defense. Zeke Smith seems to be at a level that he hasn't been the previous 3 years as far as conditioning and long stick, that he's a dominating force in the middle of the field, and hopefully he'll be able to play a lot more minutes because he's in a lot better shape this year. You know, Preston Dabbs, freshman All-American at D-Midi, you know, he's another one of our key players. Then I would say, you know, the whole attack being back is a big thing. You know, they've played together for a year. You know, Rhett DePaul on the right side, Brady DeShields. You know, Jesse Rabishaw came on late, a great finisher on the inside, catches everything. And then the emergence of Luke Phipps, who didn't play a lot but was in that group, makes our attack, you know, I think a lethal weapon at this point. And they're getting a lot better. The shooting's better. We're finishing better. So I say, you know, that as a unit, they're definitely a strength this year. Whereas last year, I thought that, you know, that was a unit that kind of held us back at times. Well, impact guys, I would say that probably the biggest impact is going to be Donovan Lang, who's is a senior who transferred here from Jacksonville 2 years ago, and because of eligibility had to stay out a year. But key new guy, he definitely is in the mix. He's on the first midfield line. He's got extreme speed. He shoots the ball hard, plays man up. You know, he seems to be the guy that's the biggest newcomer. But then there's a couple other guys that I think will definitely be in the mix. Cash Carlson, a 6'4" defenseman from Georgia, who's got a good edge about him, has kind of worked his way maybe up into the fourth defensive spot. Nate Blondino, a kid that's from St. Mary's Riken, it was highly recruited out of high school, is really emerging as he learns our system after getting here in the middle of the year. I think he could also be an impact player at attack or midfield as we move forward. Well, you know, as usual, we have one of the toughest non-conference schedules, and, you know, you're right out of the bat, you know, the first 5 or 6 games playing, you know, all the teams that are in the top group, and so we got to be ready as we get out of the gate here quickly, you know, with Lynchburg coming as ranked, Widener ranked, you know, Gettysburg ranked, OWU ranked. I mean, it just goes on one right after another there in the first 4 weeks of the season. So, and obviously our conferences continue to improve as a whole. The emergence of, you know, St. Mary's and Roanoke and York being extremely competitive. The newcomers on the block, CNU, Frostburg continues to get to improve. That, you know, we have a much more demanding, you know, conference schedule than we had in the past, that we must arise and meet each and every challenge. Yeah, well, hopefully, you know, last year they were able to hold some opponents down, especially early in the season, and to allow us to win some close games that if we didn't have such a great defensive unit. You know, we're counting on that group. You know, we've added Austin Kemp into the mix to replace Brett Baer and moved him down, which gives us actually more speed at close. You know, Marty Walsh is the backup pole. Davis Anderson, who started last year as a freshman too at D-Midi, and Timmy Stone, a senior. I mean, all those guys are a lot better this year. And, you know, as a group, I might be one of the fastest groups defensively that we've ever had here. So hopefully not only we're going to hold opponents down, But one of our major objectives this year is that we're going to score more off of their great defense. We're going to get the ball up quicker. They're going to make plays so that we can get some easier goals. It seems like we were grinding for everything last year, and Seagull lacrosse pressure defense is always translated into some easy goals at the other end. And I think this unit can definitely do it. If the scrimmage on Sunday was any indication, our transition game will hopefully be a force to be reckoned with.
Goals and expectations for this year's team. For us, it's probably going to be a season of growth centered around some of the more less obvious answers. We're not going to be a team that's going to stare at the wins and losses as much. And for us, it's going to be a season of establishing some of the correct cultural and traditions in a program that's just getting going in the NCAA. And so for us, it's going to be a few of those kind of ambitions and measuring marks. So to be candid, we're going to want to play competitively, and that may not mean wins and losses, but we're going to be a team that competes for 60 minutes. We're going to play good team defense. We can do that with maybe not enough players or as much skill as our opponents, but we can certainly play good team defense. And then I think last of all, we're going to look to be fundamentally sound, try to not be the team that shoots yourself in the foot kind of a situation. So those are the three things we're talking about in practice and with some regularity right now. By position, we have a defensive captain, Marcel Blake, who is returning, who is a tremendous asset to us, period. He is a leader and is a take charge guy, so he'll be a key anchor for us on the defense. A couple other players that are returning that have been in the program for a few years: Josh Nielsen, Garrett Ma, and Ben Tillotson, and just to name a few of the guys that are returners being involved that have played in seasons past. We're going to rely on them to help us. Key newcomers. The whole rest of the team is the key newcomers. We've got a lot of additions to the program, but some of the players we help are going to expect to help us out right away. We've just recently added a few return missionaries, Nash Wilkie and Mike Bangeter from Lone Peak High School in Utah. They just entered the program here this semester, and they're going to be great additions because they're a little bit older, wiser, more mature, have the right work ethic, and they're going to kind of have to be the lead guys and helping us get through the season with their maturity. Also added some youth players. My son Jacob's going to be a good addition to the program as an early graduate from high school who can help us out in our midfield. We're kind of grateful for a lot of the other players that are participating that are new to the program, but those are a few, at least right now. Well, it's one of the bragging points when I'm talking to recruits. All the players that we're trying to attract to come to Southern Virginia University. The schedule's a big piece of why do you want to play here? Why play lacrosse at Southern Virginia University? And the schedule is one of those key reasons. I love that we're participants in the CAC. It's a very prestigious and competitive lacrosse conference. One of the premier lacrosse conferences in Division III. Well, having said that, we're not ready for it, but it is part of what we're excited to know that that's what we're growing towards as a program, is to be a competitive, one day to be very competitive, if not right away. In the next year or two, we're going to be a competitive CAC foe for the other teams. But I also do like, though, and I didn't set the schedule, but our non-conference schedule fits who we are. There's some opportunities for us to compete maybe on a more level, equal basis, and so I look forward to the beginning of our season. We have some great matchup non-conference games, and then even a couple at the end of the season or some other non-conference games that are going to be a good finish for us as, again, equals for equals, teams that are similar to our situation. So our training conditioning so far is going very well, I feel. I'm new to the campus and learning, the ins and outs of what facilities you can use and when and how to deal with the weather. And our fields, outdoor fields, are great, and we're getting through some renovations up there. So access and lights and things are still being worked on. So, but all things being considered, we've done, I think, a great job as a coaching staff of getting the players geared up and physically a little more prepared. Ryan Foster, our strength and conditioning coach, doing a great job in the weight room. So I feel that we're doing as much as we can to get them physically prepared without having a full indoor practice facility. And with the weather, we've only been out on the turf a couple times, but we've made good use of our indoor kind of arena here, or the CAC here, that we've been able to get some good practices in. So I think we're as prepared as we can be physically at this point. Not quite sure we're as prepared for the games, the opponents we're going to play, but we're physically getting there. So.
Well, we feel that we've been in a rebuilding process, and we feel like this may be a year where we can take another substantial step forward. Obviously, we're looking hopefully to repeat what we did last year, which was make the CAC playoffs. We'd like to think we could improve our positioning. Possibly, we're looking for some more victories within the conference, and we'd like to have some more significant victories out of conference as well this year. Starting from the offensive end, Jathan Mahaffey and Mike Rakos, who are both sophomores, both started as freshmen. Jathan led the team in scoring last year and in total points and assists. Mike Rakos, I think, was 4th or 5th on the team, and Mike missed 6 or 7 games with a broken thumb at the beginning of the season and still had a great year, culminating in his outstanding performance he had at the end of the year versus Marymount in an overtime win, where he scored, I believe, the tying goal in the winner in overtime to propel us into the tournament. There's going to be probably 2 to 3 other guys on the attack, primarily John Chenault and transfer Chandler Edmonds, that certainly are going to get plenty of playing time for us at that end. At the midfield, Captain James Moss, Pat Lapari, who's a senior, and they're going to be joined by Sam Siebert, who's a sophomore. So we'll have a junior, a sophomore, and a senior on that first line. They're experienced, they've worked hard in the offseason, and I believe that they'll be a very solid first line. Our second line has transfer Jack Redford, who was an all-conference junior college player and certainly is going to provide some firepower and punch. Alex Linder, who's a very athletic freshman, and Drew Hammer, a senior, who kind of gives that leadership and stability to that second group. At the face-off, we have Jack O'Neill. Jack was Mike McCory's backup. Mike graduated, and he certainly is going to be a loss this year. But Jack had a great fall, did well in our fall tournament, and at the end of the year, in practice every day, was giving Mike everything he could handle. So we feel like we may be in a very positive spot at the face-off with Jack as well. Our long poles, we return Justin Seibert, and we also have freshman Oakley Dieter and junior Sylvester Tapman. All 3 outstanding athletes that can run and play between the lines and are solid defenders. Our short stick D-mids are going to be a freshman, Alex Skidmore, who came as an offensive midi, and we're using his athleticism and talent and his toughness, getting the ball up off the ground and playing defense as a D-mid. And then Ryan Ramsey, transfer from Centenary, who will probably start for us as one of our top 2 defensive midfielders. Close defense, Kyle Funk, who's been a 3-year starter, is back. Our other captain, Josh Ladd, has just really grown leaps and bounds as a defender. He's committed himself to being excellent. And Eric Bonds, who missed the first third of the season with an injury last year, is back and much healthier. We have a transfer, Dakota Stimson, who probably right now on paper looks to be our fourth defender. And then we have Sam Kennedy in the goal. Sam is a junior, is a backup. This is his year to start and shine, and he knows what's at stake. We've asked him, he doesn't have to win games for us. We want him to be steady, consistent, and make all the savable saves, and we feel comfortable that he can do that at this level. I'm a firm believer that the CAC is probably the strongest conference in the country in Division III lacrosse. As few as maybe 5 or 6 years ago, that probably couldn't be said. Now it's become more of a murderer's row. Every school in the conference has made a significant commitment to men's lacrosse, and bringing in Christopher Newport this year in Southern Virginia. Southern Virginia may be a new program, but Christopher Newport has established themselves as an independent. They're going to be instantly competitive within our conference, and there are no days off in our conference. When you play a conference opponent, you're basically in a dogfight, because everyone wants one of those 6 coveted spots in the postseason, and now there's 9 of us, so that means that 3 people are going to be disappointed to stay home every year. So to make the conference tournament, I think, is an accomplishment in itself, and to survive with a quality record within the conference means on a national scale, you're really competitive. We have at least 3 teams in the conference I'm fairly confident in that at the end of the year will be ranked in the top 20 and be nationally competitive in the tournament.
Well, our goals and expectations, as cliched as it sounds, is to improve each day and improve in where we are as a program right now. We are in my 3rd year at York, and I think we're starting to reach that point where it's not about change anymore, and it's about results and improvement. We have goals pertaining to wins and losses, but this early on, it's hard to think about that as much as just improving each day. But we're looking to improve on what we did last year, both on the offensive end and on the defensive end in transition. I think we're really good on paper, and in January everybody's really good on paper. We bring on the offensive end. I'll start there. On the offensive end, we bring back most of our scoring from last year. Our entire attack unit returns, headlined by Tyler Hudson, the Conference Player of the Year. Tyler's gotten better each year he's been here, and we've changed his role. Added more to his game last year than the previous year, and that's going to even increase this season. He'll be asked to carry a lot more of the load and change his game and distribute the ball. We bring back sophomore Andrew Gamble, who had a pretty good freshman year, and I think he's worked really hard and gotten bigger. He's in really good shape right now in terms of his fitness level that he can go, and I'm expecting a big year for him. And then Tyler Davis, kind of within one of these weird stats, but last year Tyler Davis led our conference in points in conference games. And so in our biggest games, he stepped up and played really well. He had a little injury in the fall that set him out a little bit, but I think what that did was make him hungry, and he seems to be ready to go so far. First 3 practices we've had. That's the attack group. At midfield, I think we're pretty dynamic to stop. Seth Krolis does a little bit of everything for us. He's a great offensive player. He's great in defense. He's awesome on ground balls. He does everything for us, and he's pretty dynamic offensively. Jamie Lowe is tough to cover one-on-one. He draws a lot of attention. He sees the field well and can score it. And then rounding out that unit, Chris Varela, who ran on our second line last year, has moved to our first line, and there are some days of practice where I think he could be the best one of the 3. He is a completely different player this year than he was last year, much more balanced. And then our second midfield line, we have a lot of familiar faces. They all come back as well. Dakota Randall moves from midfield from attack, played as a freshman down there. And then Andrew Taylor, who's a senior for us, and JoJo Joseph, who played last year on that line as a freshman, are all back. And so our first 6 midfielders does not change from last year. And then on the defensive end, that's where we're green. That's where we've got some guys to replace. I think we're more athletic and more dynamic there than we've been in the past. But team defense and some of the IQ things might be where we're lacking. So we're going to be able to apply a little bit more pressure on our opponent and play a little more aggressive style there than we have in the past. But it's going to come with some youth and inexperience. But the guys that headline that group are Josh Kluver on defense, who played long stick midfielder last year, moves down to close. Kevin Braun, who started every game last year's close defenseman, is back. And then that third spot's pretty wide open right now amongst a handful of freshmen and a couple sophomores that we're looking to piece in there. And then in the goal, we kind of have a healthy open competition going on right now between Caleb Abney, Christian Koch, James Anderson, and Joe Bellavia. All 4 of them are very good. Caleb kind of got the nod in the middle third of the season last year and did really, really well with it. He hasn't done anything to not secure that role, but these other guys are pushing him really, really tight right now. We try to put together the best, the hardest schedule we can that makes geographic sense, and then in terms of preparing us for our conference play and potentially preparing us for an at-large bid at the NCAA tournament. And so scheduling can be a pretty good chess match in the off-season when you start to figure out all these things. We have 5 games against Centennial schools, which is arguably one of the best conferences in the country. Again, it's arguable. I think we have a pretty good conference in our country. And then we have our conference slate. And then in addition to that, we open with Stevenson, who's the national champion. And so our out-of-conference schedule should do 2 things. It should prepare our resume in terms of strength of schedule simply, and then it should definitely prepare us for our conference slate. As far as our conference schedule goes, we had 2 schools in Southern Virginia and Christopher Newport. Christopher Newport was already on our schedule, so that's not much of a change, but they bring another team and another challenge into our conference. And then Southern Virginia's new. We've never seen them. I don't know what to expect. But as far as the rest of the schools that were in the league last year, I felt like last year our league collectively was pretty strong, and I don't think there was a whole lot lost to graduation across the board. And so I think our conference slate is going to be 8 teams battling for 6 spots, and I can't seem to predict where it's going to fall.
The men's lacrosse season begins on February 9th as Salisbury travels to Greensboro in non-conference action, while CAC play opens up on Tuesday, March 11th. Log on to cacsports.com to find out more. For the Capital Athletic Conference, I'm Tim Maurer. Thanks for tuning in to the first ever CAC Men's Lacrosse Preseason Webcast.